Who was the biggest loser? We'll look at everything that led to the downfall of one of the most popular televangelists. Stick around until the end because what had been revealed before death is something that will blow your mind away. Why was Kenneth Copeland so famous? Kenneth Max Copeland was born on December 6, 1936, and raised in West Texas near United States Army Air Force's airfield. This inspired him to become a pilot. Copeland was a recording artist on the Imperial Records label, having one Billboard Top 40 hit, Pledge of Love, which charted in the top 40 on April 20, 1957. It stayed on the charts for 15 weeks and peaked at number 17. In the fall of 1967, he enrolled in Oral Roberts University, where he soon became a pilot and chauffeur to Oral Roberts. In 1967, after attending Kenneth E. Hagin's pastor seminars, Copeland and his wife, Gloria, founded Kenneth Copeland Ministries in Fort Worth, Texas. The ministry's motto is, Jesus is Lord. Kenneth Copeland Ministries, KCM, has 6 international offices in Canada, Africa, Asia, Australia, Europe, and Ukraine. He preaches prosperity theology and is part of the Word of Faith movement, which teaches that financial blessing and physical well-being are the will of God for believers and that material and financial success are a sign of divine favor. This may be unlocked through giving to the ministry, and Copeland has written that parishioners will get a 100-fold return on their investment through giving to God by giving to his ministry. Throughout several decades of ministry, Kenneth Copeland has supported and partnered with other notable ministers of the gospel. In 1986, Copeland supported and prayed over Reinhard Bonk during the Fresh Fire Conference. Daniel Kenda, who was the successor to Reinhard Bonk, said that Kenneth Copeland told Bonk that one day Bonk would preach to 1 million people in one day. Since 1967, Copeland's ministry has held 3 to 6 day conventions across the United States. KCM still holds an annual Southwest Believers Convention in his hometown of Fort Worth during the first week of August. Kenneth and Gloria Copeland also preach and minister at other conventions and conferences throughout the world. These events stream live on Copeland's website, kcm.org, as well as being shown on Christian television stations such as God TV and Daystar Television Network. Portions of recorded conferences are shown on Sundays. The Monday through Friday television broadcasts feature a Copeland family member either alone or with another minister discussing subjects from the Bible. On May 27, 1971, KCM began a 1-hour television program called The Word of Faith. In 1972, another television program was launched called The Prayer Group. A half-hour program aired across the United States. In 1989, the weekly show The Word of Faith was replaced by a daily series called Believer's Voice of Victory. Along with their television programming and television network, Kenneth Copeland has produced and starred in several films, including the Rally Super Kid Academy, The Mission, and the Rally LA. In 2015, KCM launched the Believer's Voice of Victory Network on Channel 265 on Dish Network. The Believer's Voice of Victory Network was renamed the Victory Channel in 2019 and is available over the air and on some cable providers. On October 2, 2020, the Believer's Voice of Victory stopped broadcasting on the Trinity Broadcasting Network. At the start of 2022, it was added on several national cable systems under a new channel lease with Olympia, which had previously hosted Hillsong Channel and Living Faith Network, then Bulldog Shopping Network on the channel space. The Victory Channel's popular Flashpoint Current Events Prophecy program is hosted by Pastor Gene Bailey and reaches approximately 11,000 households. Flashpoint commonly features nationally known ministry leaders such as Lance Wallnau and Hank Kunman. Other guests have included Donald Trump, Charlie Kirk, Marjorie Taylor Greene, and former ambassador to Israel, David Friedman. Kenneth Copeland Ministries is located in Fort Worth, Texas, on a 33-acre property that was once Marine Corps Air Station Eagle Mountain Lake, a United States Marine Corps Air Base. In 2008, the property was valued and reported that it had a single usable runway. That same year, KCM told the Fort Worth Star-Telegram that it was raising money to resurface the second runway so it could be used again. It was using the former Marine Corps Hospital building as a medical clinic for church members. In 2008, approximately 500 people were employed by KCM. Copeland's son, John Copeland, was the ministry's chief operating officer until his divorce from Marty Copeland in 2018, though he remains a consultant to the ministry. KCM owns several business jets, including a 1998 Cessna 550 Citation Bravo, which it received from a donor in October 2007 and is used for domestic flights, and a 2005 Cessna 750 Citation X, which it uses for international flights. In 2018, KCM acquired a Gulfstream V that was formerly owned by Tyler Perry and was restoring a 1962 Beechcraft H-18 Twin, which the ministry plans to use for disaster relief efforts. Kenneth Copeland Bible College, KCBC, is located on the property of Kenneth Copeland Ministries and Eagle Mountain International Church. KCBC is an accredited member with the Trans World Accrediting Commission International. On August 28, 2003, Kenneth Copeland Bible College opened an extension campus in Langley, British Columbia. For several decades, Copeland and KCM have been a public and vocal supporter of Israel. On August 17, 2022, the President of Israel, Isaac Herzog, called and personally thanked Copeland and KCM for their support of Ukrainian and Russian Jews. In 2020, he was listed by the Israel Allies Foundation as one of the top supporters of Israel, along with Paula White, John Hagee, Mike Huckabee, and other Christian leaders. Copeland and other Christian leaders such as Greg Laurie and John Hagee have received criticism for their support of Israel. Personal life and wealth. Copeland has been married 3 times. His first marriage was to Ivy Bodford in October 1955. They had 1 child and divorced in 1958. He was then married to Cynthia Davis from 1958 to 1961. Copeland married Gloria in 1963. They are the parents of John Copeland and Kelly Copeland. Gloria co-hosts the ministry's flagship broadcast, Believer's Voice of Victory, alongside her husband. Kelly preaches throughout the United States, as does Copeland's daughter, Terry, who also preaches at Eagle Mountain International Church, which is pastored by her husband, George Pearsons. Copeland has amassed significant wealth during his career and has referred to himself as a very wealthy man. The Houston Chronicle referred to him as the wealthiest pastor in America, allegedly having a net worth of $750 million in 2021. As of last year, Copeland's net worth was estimated to be $300 million. Copeland sat on the Evangelical Executive Advisory Board that Donald Trump assembled during his campaign for the presidency. Appointment to the board did not require endorsement of his bid for the presidency, and Copeland clarified that he did not endorse Trump at the time. Before the 2016 election, Copeland said that Christians who did not vote for Trump would be guilty of murder, referring to the pro-choice stance of Hillary Clinton. After a state dinner at the White House that Copeland attended, he stated in an interview that Trump was led by the Spirit of God and that his most important legacy as president would be the appointments of conservative judges. On November 5, 2022, Copeland spoke at a Donald Trump rally in Latrobe, Pennsylvania, stating that Trump is the only president he has ever seen where the red, white, and blue are in office. During the 2024 Southwest Believers Convention in Fort Worth, Texas, Copeland told the thousands in attendance and online that voting is a sacred trust. His involvement in politics as a nationally prominent ministry leader has drawn both praise and criticism. But how exactly did he manage to achieve all of this? What were the teachings that made this all possible? The teachings of Kenneth Copeland. Kenneth Copeland stands today as one of the faith movement's leading spokesmen. His voluminous material in print and broadcast media, combined with his crusades and international outreach centers, attest to his vast influence. Copeland is responsible for spreading many of the faith movement's unbiblical teachings. He distorts the biblical concepts of faith and covenant. He reduces God to the image of man while elevating man to the status of God. He lowers Jesus to being a product of positive confession who took on a satanic nature at the cross. He promotes the occult practice of creative visualization. Copeland's errors are largely due to his negative stance on reasoning, his poor handling of the Bible, his aversion toward theology, and his bias against tradition. On the night of November 2, 1962, a young man, 25 years of age, struggling against sin, sickness, and strife, asked Jesus to come into his heart. His decision came 2 weeks after his wife had done likewise. Today, these 2 individuals have a ministry that literally stretches around the globe while remaining in the forefront of what has come to be known as the faith movement. Kenneth and Gloria Copeland. Part 1 of this series explored the roots of the faith movement and surveyed some of its leading proponents. Today, in this installment, in 1967, however, Copeland experienced a revolution in his outlook through the preaching of yet another evangelist, Kenneth E. Hagin, regarded by many as the father of the faith movement. With reference to his distant mentor, Copeland has been quoted as saying that he learned nothing during 6 months at Oral Roberts University, but was so excited by Hagin's teachings that he spent the next month in his garage listening to them. Copeland returned to Fort Worth, Texas, in 1968, where they established an evangelistic association. Within a few short years, their home-based Bible studies reportedly grew into large revivals, sometimes with crowds large enough to fill entire civic centers and international arenas. In 1973, the ministry began publishing its own newsletter, Believer's Voice of Victory. 2 years later, Copeland claimed the Lord commanded him to preach the uncompromised word on every available voice. This prompted him to launch the Believer's Voice of Victory radio broadcast in 1976. By 1979, Copeland's ministry was established firmly enough to enter the arena of television, paving the way for its 1981 venture into satellite communications. In August of the following year, the ministry made history by initiating the first global religious broadcast. Copeland continues to experience popular acceptance within various charismatic and Pentecostal circles. His books, booklets, and taped messages can be found in a number of Christian bookstores, and his crusades and revivals consistently produce large turnouts. Furthermore, the ministry's international scope and influence is well attested by its offices in England, the Philippines, South Africa, Australia, Canada, and Hong Kong. While not every faith teacher holds to all of Copeland's doctrines, they, along with his followers, consider him a leading, if not the leading, authority on faith theology. Many have already coronated Copeland as the new king of the faith movement. Writes one observer in a recent article, even Time magazine refers to Copeland as the chief exponent of the faith movement. Of the multiple views of faith held by faith teachers, Copeland focuses primarily on an understanding of faith as a force. Force faith is a power force, he claims. It is a tangible force. It is a conductive force. Moreover, faith is a spiritual force. It is substance. Faith has the ability to affect natural substance as the force of gravity makes the law of gravity work. This force of faith makes the laws of the spirit world function. Copeland affirms that God cannot do anything for you apart or separate from faith, for faith is God's source of power. Moreover, everything that you're able to see or touch, anything you can feel, anything that's perceptible to the 5 physical senses, was originally the faith of God and was born in the substance of God's faith. In other words, faith was the raw material substance that the Spirit of God used to form the universe. Copeland adds that God used words when he created the heavens and the earth. Each time God spoke, he released his faith, the creative power to bring his words to pass. Fort words are spiritual containers, and the force of faith is released by words. Copeland derives his definition of faith from Hebrews 11 verse 1. Now faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. He interprets the word substance as some transcendent primary element that makes up the universe. It was and is activated by spoken words at the onset of creation, both God's original creation of the world and all subsequent creations, whether by God or man. Contrary to Copeland's view, the word translated substance in the King James Version is the Greek word hypostasis, which, in the context of Hebrews 11 verse 1, means an assured impression, a mental realizing. Far from being some tangible material or energetic force, faith is a channel of living trust stretching from man to God. It is an assurance that God's promises never fail, even if sometimes we do not experience their fulfillment during our mortal existence. Other translations render hypostasis more precisely as being sure or assurance. Neither the original Greek text nor any of the modern translations support Copeland's understanding of faith. The same holds true for his understanding of spoken words. Besides, the idea of words functioning as faith-filled containers makes no sense if there is no such thing as a force of faith requiring packaging and transportation in the first place. But despite how dedicated he may seem in his teachings, Kenneth Copeland was not without his own controversies. The controversy. Kenneth Copeland Ministries, KCM, has been criticized for its use of private aircraft. KCM promised from 2006 to 2010 to create an aviation relief assistance program called Angel Flight 44 to help Haiti. A spokesperson responded that this was not a specific promise with a timeline attached and said that the money was spent on airplane repairs. In 2008, the ministry owned 5 airplanes and continued to purchase more. In February 2007, Copeland was accused of using KCM Citation X for personal vacations. The Copeland's financial records and a list of KCM's board of directors are not publicly available. The information is held in confidence by the Internal Revenue Service. Responding to media questions, Copeland pointed to an accounting firm's declaration that his jet travel complied with federal tax laws. In December 2008, KCM Citation Bravo was denied tax exemption after KCM refused to submit a standardized Texas comptroller form that some county appraisal districts use to make determinations, which would have required making public the salary of all ministry staff. KCM subsequently filed suit with the Tarrant Appraisal District in January 2009, and its petition to have the aircraft's tax-exempt status restored was granted. In March 2008, KCM utilized an FAA program that blocks enrolled aircraft on flight tracking websites. In 2010, the flights of 5 of the ministry's aircraft were kept private, including the Citation X and a North American T-28 Trojan. United States Senator Chuck Grassley has questioned some of the flights taken by these aircraft, including layovers in Maui, Fiji, and Honolulu. The ministries say that the stopovers were for preaching or for allowing pilot rest. Copeland raised funds for the building of a hangar, upgrading the runway, and maintenance. Copeland's and other televangelists' use of private jets, luxury cars, and lavish houses has been widely criticized. In 2015, Copeland, in a broadcast alongside fellow televangelist Jesse Duplantis, defended the use of private jets as a necessary part of their ministry. Mike Huckabee, a 2008 Republican presidential primary candidate who made 6 appearances on Copeland's program Believer's Voice of Victory, rented KCM's facilities for a fundraiser, which was criticized by the Trinity Foundation. As a result of the Huckabee appearances, KCM was one of 6 ministries investigated in the United States Senate inquiry into the tax-exempt status of religious organizations. KCM was one of 4 that did not cooperate or volunteer to make reforms. The investigation did not conclude that Copeland had done anything wrong. In 2013, a measles outbreak with 25 confirmed cases in Tarrant County was attributed in the press to anti-vaccination sentiments expressed by members of the Copeland ministries. The church denied making any such statements and urged members to get vaccinations, even offering free immunizations through the church itself. Pastor Terry Copeland Pearsons, who is Kenneth Copeland's daughter, offered free vaccination clinics and advised those who did not attend one of the clinics to quarantine themselves at home for 2 weeks. In a statement on the church website, Pearson said she was not against immunizations but also raised concerns about them. Some people think I am against immunizations, but that is not true. Vaccinations help cut the mortality rate enormously. I believe it is wrong to be against vaccinations. The concerns we have had are primarily with very young children who have a family history of autism and with bundling too many immunizations at one time. This brings us to a turning point: Copeland and his lavish lifestyle. Copeland and his wife were featured in a 2015 episode of Last Week Tonight with John Oliver. John Oliver criticized the Copelands for using tax laws to live in a $6.3 million mansion, as the parsonage allowance for their home is not subject to income taxes. He also criticized the use of church donations to buy a $2 million jet that was used for trips to a ski resort and a private game ranch, as well as for the promotion of healing through faith and skepticism of medicine. In May 2019, Copeland received criticism for his lavish lifestyle after Inside Edition released an interview where he defended his purchase of a private jet. He stated that if he flew commercial, he'd have to stop 65% of what he was doing. He additionally defended a previous comment where he said he did not fly commercial because he likened it to flying with demons. Copeland had drawn criticism for his comments on the Joe Biden presidency. He also gained attention during the COVID-19 pandemic, arguing that pastors should not cancel services and repeatedly saying that the pandemic had ended or would end soon. On March 29, 2020, in a televised sermon, Copeland executed judgment on COVID-19. He claimed that it was finished and over and that the U.S. was now healed and well again. In another sermon shortly thereafter, he claimed to destroy the virus with the wind of God. He urged followers to continue to give tithes to his ministry, even if they had lost their jobs through the economic hardship brought about by the pandemic. In August 3 to 8, 2020, the Kenneth Copeland Ministries hosted the Southwest Believers Conference at the Fort Worth Convention Center in Fort Worth, Texas, despite restrictions on social gatherings to limit the spread of the pandemic. Local leaders criticized the event, which was attended by hundreds of people, but were unable to enforce public health restrictions because religious gatherings were exempt under Governor Greg Abbott's executive orders. With such controversy, Kenneth Copeland finally broke his silence and admitted something that we were all expecting. Kenneth Copeland explains himself. In the waning days of 2015, renowned televangelist Kenneth Copeland laid out exactly why he needs a luxury private jet to do his job. You can't talk to God while flying commercial, he argued. Criticized at the time for his use of extravagant planes, Copeland argued that travel for his work would be difficult, nay impossible, without them. The Texas-based preacher invoked his mentor, prosperity gospel preacher Oral Roberts, who Copeland said faced unsolicited requests for prayer when he flew on public airliners, agitating his spirit. "You can't manage that today in this dope-filled world. Get in a long tube with a bunch of demons," Copeland told fellow televangelist Jesse Duplantis, who has faced similar backlash for asking his followers to bankroll a $54 million jet. "And it's deadly." Copeland's defense, widely mocked and viewed by millions, did little to help his case. Many figured the demons he spoke of were the same people he'd asked for donations from the previous month. The preacher was asked to clarify his remarks by Lisa Guerrero, a reporter for news magazine Inside Edition. Their exchange recently went viral, reigniting conversations about televangelists and the tax-exempt status of churches. Captured on video, confronting Copeland as he got into a car, Guerrero pressed him repeatedly on his 2015 comments. At one point, asking, "Do you really believe that humans are demons?" "No, I do not." "And don't you ever say I did," Copeland responded, visibly perturbed. He added, "It's a biblical thing. It's a spiritual thing. It doesn't have anything to do with people. I love people. Jesus loves people. But people get pushed in alcohol." Ending with a biblical view on wealth. Guerrero asked how he would respond to those who say preachers shouldn't live so luxuriously. "They're wrong," he replied. "It's a misunderstanding of the Bible. If you go into the Old Covenant, do you think the Jewish people believe you should be broke?" Guerrero followed up, "Are you saying that Jewish people appreciate money more?" Copeland said, "Some people would find that offensive." Guerrero responded, "Wait a minute now, I'm not talking about some people." Copeland explains before mentioning the Abrahamic blessing. "I'm talking about the Bible." In his various responses, Copeland draws passages from the books of Ephesians and Galatians. He again cites Oral Roberts, who Copeland says took the same heat for believing God would prosper you. Like many televangelists, Copeland preaches the prosperity gospel, which stems from the belief that faith, often in the form of donations to preachers and ministries, will garner riches down the line. HBO's John Oliver spoke at length on televangelism, or, as he put it, churches who exploit people's faith for monetary gain in a 2015 episode of Last Week Tonight. The host illustrated an unmistakable pattern of these television preachers purchasing or asking for donations to buy extravagant high-end jets. Among the examples were televangelist Creflo Dollar, who was ridiculed in 2015 for asking his followers to raise $65 million for a Gulfstream G650.